Hello and welcome to the Sim Racing Corner. Today we're looking at the MOZA Racing R9 direct drive wheelbase. The R9 is a 9Nm offering, giving sim racers the opportunity to get access to the benefits of high-end force feedback at an affordable price, making the R9 an attractive upgrade for anybody currently running a common belt or cog-driven wheelbase. Direct drive motors have some serious benefits over those other wheelbase systems, and we'll go through all this later in the video, but first let's take a look at the features of the R9. The shell housing the motor is aluminium. This acts as a heatsink. During use it will get warm to the touch as it draws heat from the motor. The rear panel where you'll find the sockets is plastic. The unit is compact, weighing just under 4.8 kilograms. When you factor in the added weight of a wheel, such as the MOZA Racing CS wheel, shown in the background here, it gives us a total weight of 7 kilograms, still remaining very manageable as a mass, making it potentially suitable for mounting to a wheel stand. The included external power supply feeding that motor is 180 watts. This plugs into the rear panel between the power button and USB socket. The sockets labelled dash and e-stop are for plugging in additional separate accessories. I will show you one of those accessories in a moment. The M6 hard mount points in the base match the Fanatec standard wheelbase mounting hole pattern. Wheel stand and sim cockpit wheel stand mounting plates will usually be pre-drilled for popular brands, so this should make the task of attaching this R9 wheelbase much easier. MOZA also sells a separate mounting bracket. For some setups this may be necessary, such as for desk mounting the wheelbase. The chevron pattern on the flat end of the steering shaft are in actual fact terminals that power the button plates on MOZA wheels. The data communication between the button plate and the wheelbase is via Bluetooth. Some people have the misconception that you need to run a MOZA wheel to run the wheelbase. That's a restriction with the Fanatec ecosystem, but not a restriction here. But I think that is where the confusion is coming from. A MOZA button plate is not necessary to run a MOZA wheelbase, so do remember that. This is an Asher button plate that runs a coiled USB cable to my PC. The only consideration is having a compatible wheel side quick release. MOZA does sell these individual quick release adapters, but I also discovered it fits perfectly to my D1 spec quick release. This is the MOZA CM Dash, an optional extra dashboard display screen designed specifically to fit the R9 and plugs directly into the wheelbase socket labelled Dash. The MOZA Pithouse software that runs the wheelbase also operates the digital dashboards for this screen. Now let's take a quick tour around the MOZA Pithouse software. It provides the user with an intuitive interface with plenty of features. You're free to configure the settings manually and save and load your personalised profiles. MOZA has also included presets to cover different driving disciplines, and you can always use those presets as a baseline and tweak them further. Force feedback is subjective. Everybody has their own interpretation of what feels right to them, and you're free to ignore my preferences, that's absolutely fine. But for what it's worth, I turned off all the damping and friction settings and ran the torque at 100% in the MOZA Pithouse software. I always prefer to tweak the force feedback settings in the game rather than the driver software. The force feedback equalizer is an interesting and unique feature. Here you can tune the main force feedback elements. If you feel something needs a boost, you do that here. Personally, I was happy to run everything at default. Again, this is down to personal preference, and potentially you'd make changes here on a per game basis. This is the MOZA Racing app. All the settings accessible through the main PC software can be configured through this app also. The communication between your tablet or phone device is a direct connection to the wheelbase over Bluetooth. Okay then, that ends this introduction segment of this review. I'm sure you'll agree the MOZA Racing R9 looks like a solid piece of hardware, but where it counts is on track, so that's where we're heading next to talk about the performance. Throughout the rest of this video you'll see me running a variety of popular titles, and firstly I can tell you I had no problems getting the R9 up and running in any of these games. At the top of the video I mentioned the R9 could be an ideal upgrade for racing game enthusiasts looking to step up to a direct drive system, and I do believe it is. Firstly, the price of the R9 is very competitive. To put this into some perspective, in the UK I can buy the MOZA R9 wheelbase for £399. Run that against the Thrustmaster TSPC Racer Servo base, a less powerful belt driven wheelbase is just £50 less. The MOZA R9 is clearly and most definitely the better deal. The price of the MOZA R9 is quite incredible, and also worth mentioning the R9 is also cheaper than the Fanatec CSL DD, and indeed the R9 is more powerful too. The CSL DD tops out at 8 Newton meters and the R9 gives us 9 Newton meters. Should that low price give you any concerns about the quality? Are there any compromises made to hit that price point? As far as I can tell you, the answer is no as far as I'm concerned. The build quality is excellent, you've seen it close up on the table and it is as good as it appears. Solid construction throughout, including the quick release. There's zero play in the connection between the wheel and the base. The 9 Newton meter motor is sending through detailed force feedback effects, very comparable to the Fanatec CSL DD in fact. It's impossible not for me to mention the CSL DD in this video. It's a wheelbase I've also reviewed and used quite happily for 6 months, and the MOZA Racing R9 is a direct competitor. During my time with the 8 Newton meter CSL DD, there were some occasions I wanted a bit more power, particularly Formula cars. I felt they needed stronger forces coming from the wheel, but still overall a good experience with little to complain about. Though with the R9 and that extra single Newton meter of torque puts the force feedback right bang in the middle of the sweet spot for me. I couldn't ask for more, it's perfect. I do like solid feeling force feedback and this is dead on. Depending on the game and sometimes the car, I'm running the in-game force feedback strength between 80 and 90%. When I use even more powerful direct drive wheelbases, I reduce the force feedback strength to the same level that I'm running the R9. So this wheelbase, as far as my personal requirements go, there are no compromises. We could go off on a tangent and discuss other benefits of more powerful direct drive motors, but that is really something for a different video, so let's stay on the subject of the R9. Sim racing games use sophisticated physics modelling, and it's quite amazing that these consumer grade games are able to filter this through the force feedback in precise detail. And to get the most out of that force feedback you do need a direct drive wheelbase. A lesser belt or cog based system is not able to pass the same level of detail through the force feedback. It's a big advantage when you can effectively feel your way around a track through the force feedback cues. That's what a direct drive wheelbase offers, and I can tell you this as well guys, it's more fun when the wheel is more lively too. It's difficult to enjoy anything less than direct drive once you've tried it, I promise you that. The R9 is doing everything I would expect and want from a direct drive wheelbase. Quality force feedback detail, smooth wheel rotation and powerful. Through the force feedback I can feel the progressive weight transfer of the car, the heaviness of the tyres loading up while cornering, every bump on the track and even some of the track surface texture. These effects are all happening at the same time and there's plenty of detail and power to deliver this rich super force feedback. I know exactly how well planted the car is at all times with this information. Strong effects like riding curbs and collisions come through aggressively. You really know when you're pushing the limit. The car is talking to you through that force feedback. You can use those sensations to make corrections and learn to find the limits of the car and the track. If you let go of the wheel, you may experience some vicious wheel oscillation. This is not exclusive to this wheelbase, it's a common element with direct drive systems. The force feedback is essentially driving the car and fighting the wheel and causing it to go out of control. You can use damping and mechanical friction in the settings to reduce or eliminate this. There's also a hands-off protection setting in the MOZA Pithouse software to counter this oscillation. I don't like using damping, it reduces the force feedback detail, that's a personal preference of mine, but the hands-off protection seemingly had no effect in Automobilista 2. Moving on to R Factor 2, and there is very little oscillation, so this can vary from game to game, and rest assured it's not a problem to be concerned about. The wheel is not pulling side to side when your hands are on the wheel, and since you are driving with your hands on the wheel at all times, it's a non-issue really, but something to be aware of and be prepared for. I haven't managed to find any negatives with the R9. Maybe it's worth questioning the possibility that you may want more than 9 Newton meters. I can't answer that for you, all I can do is convey my experiences. And as I already stated earlier, it's right where I like it, no more or less. MOZA Racing is still a fairly new player in the sim racing hardware game, but they have demonstrated with this product they are a serious competitor. The R9 is just one product from a line of sim racing gear they manufacture. They also have a 16 and 21 Newton meter wheelbase, pedal sets and a range of custom wheel rims. MOZA Racing has built an entire sim racing ecosystem in a very short space of time. They're producing high quality gear at fierce pricing. This makes them one to watch and a warning shot across the bow for the competition. I can highly recommend the MOZA Racing R9. MOZA has done a flawless job here. It's powerful, it's compact, and an unbeatable price. It's also worth mentioning, during my few weeks of testing, MOZA released multiple updates to the MOZA Pithouse software. There were no issues for me that needed fixing, but that's a really positive sign that MOZA is keeping on top of maintaining the software and listening to their customers, fixing bugs, adding software support. That's very important. Long-term support for the software and the hardware, you know, these things go together, so that is really, really good to know. And it also makes me more certain when recommending this brand. Before I let you go, let me answer this final question for you, as I know some of you will ask this in the comments. The MOZA Racing R9 or the Fanatec CSL DD? Between these two, it's the MOZA R9, that's the one I would recommend. I will cover this more thoroughly in a follow-up video at some point, but simply put, the R9 is cheaper and does everything just a bit better than the Fanatec CSL DD, and that's it. And that's also it for this review, so I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching, guys, and do feel free to drop comments below the video. It's always good to get your feedback. So until next time, guys, I'll be back soon, and yeah, happy simming and bye-bye.